And welcome to Stack Hunters. I'm Bradley Stalder, and tonight I'm joined by top 5 seasonal ranking so far in BBM4. That's right, fantasy football guru, aficionado, Louie Gee of the Buffalo area. Shout out to you, Louie. How's it going tonight?
It's doing good. Is that all it takes? Is just I got to ride a couple weeks in the top 5, and I'm just a fantasy football aficionado now. I love that. I've just been grinding at this game for years, and I just had to get lucky with a couple good picks in the 19th and 20th round. Everybody else's players to get injured. I'm not doing shit. I hate promoting success in best ball. But I'm here to take it. I'm here to ride my coattails of a top 10 BBM team until it's dead.
Not just top 10, top 5. We are
top
riding
5.
that. We are riding that. And at one point, the number 1 team out of 650,000. We're going to dive more into Louie's team. We're going to dive more into the galaxy braining that went into this team so far. And maybe some outlook of how it's going to go the rest of the way. Louie, you'll give your thoughts. I'll give some thoughts. And then we'll go from there. We'll talk about your beloved Buffalo Bills. And then we'll talk about some players that maybe will spike in the second half of the season or fall off at the end of the season. And with all that and much more, we'll be back in just a sec. All right, Louie, I know we talked about getting into your team, but before we do, you got to tell the people. You got to tell the people why we had to delay this Stack Hunters podcast, this illustrious, award-winning podcast. 15 minutes, what we had to do to accommodate. Why did Bradley and the Stack Hunters, the entire Player Profiler company, had to accommodate your schedule? What did it take? Please tell us. The
Bradley,
people want to know.
Bradley, let me tell you here. All right, so when some things have changed in my life. I'm recently separated. I just realized today this is the first time in a long time I don't have my dad died, my overbearing mother. I'm starting to use some real boundaries, you know. My wife
this is heavy stuff, Louie, already.
Heavy stuff. So I have nobody to kind of be that like good decision maker for me. I'm just making my own, right? And the other day, this is so horrible. I can't believe I'm saying this on a podcast. The other day, I was looking for a dance class for my toddler, my 2.5-year-old. And I was like, oh, I wonder if they do hip hop classes for 2-year-olds. They don't, because no 2-year-old should be dancing to hip hop, I guess. But I stumbled upon an adult hip hop class, and I was like, okay, 40 white and chubby, but the kid's got a little bit of swag still, right? So I said, I need to do this. It's kind of part of my, like, you know, I'm going through a midlife reflection. I'm not calling it crisis. That's not the word. Midlife reflection. I said, I think I could dance. I've never choreographed dance, so I'm going to try this. I get there, dude. It was like Karen Central. Like, there was not a woman under the age of 50. There was 7. All it was 7 older women and me in this hip hop dance class. It was like suburbia grandmas and me. And I didn't care, because I'll take any attention. I'll take attention from your grandma, your kid. I don't care. So I was just in the front like, oh shit, grandmas, you can't hold on to that. But I'm literally dripping in sweat. I got into my house at 9:12 and we were on the air at 9:15. So you guys are seeing me. This is the commitment that I make.
We are here for it. If I were to join a hip hop dance class, I think the only thing that would hop would be my hips. They would pop out of place. It would be more like hip popping class, because I would have to go to the doctor the next day and get an examination. It is a traumatic thing for me, because real talk as well, I missed all of this programming last week because I was out for a concussion.
I wanted to ask about this because we were scheduled for last week, so I'm glad. Tell me the story, because let me briefly say this, because when someone that you do, me and you, we have hung out a lot, but when an adult tells you, and no offense, but someone that's not playing professional sports, adults, tells you that they had a concussion, with you not giving, you were just like, hey man, I got a concussion, I can't make it. I don't want to ask any follow-up questions, because usually the answer is not going to be great. So I'm really excited to hear the story. So
I mean,
ahead.
sure, we can dive right into it. Why not? But before we get into the story, this is great. Before we get into the story, it was probably my wife who sent you that message. She was sending messages on my behalf because I was on a 48-hour screen fast because of the concussion. Yeah, it was wild. So I had blankets over the windows to make sure it was pitch black. Like, my wife was sending text messages, and she was like, what do you want to say to these people? And I was like, I had my eyes closed, and I was just dictating to her exactly what I wanted her to message. Like, my boss is at work, and thankfully, by the time Thursday night came around, I was able to like spend enough time just updating some rankings for Fantasy Pros, and like those were actual rankings. But I finished 25th this past week, 13th and 14th in running backs and wide receivers. So out of over 200 people, not too bad.
Yeah,
Maybe
that's the same. That's the same as 667,000. You're right.
We're
like the same. Bradley.
It is really not. It is really not. But maybe I need to get more concussions. That's the recipe for success for ranking accurately for week number 6. So the story is, I mean, it's a very simple story. So I work at a high school, and there was a physical altercation that I had to step into, and the student did not intend to hit me, but they hit me. And so as a result, I didn't start experiencing symptoms really until the next day, when I was at a loss for words. I was trying to hold conversations. I just couldn't think of the words. I just couldn't think of it. And it was really frightening for me. Like, I had never experienced a moment in my life where I was like, it takes me more than a couple seconds to get the words that I need to say. It's also a problem if you have like 3 shows for fantasy football scheduled throughout the week, and I'm expected to think about, Myles Gaskin being signed off the practice squad. I can't even think about the program I'm supposed to use at school to help our, 11th graders pass the SAT. So it was problematic. And I went to the doctor, and I was like, hey, like, this is like frightening stuff. Like, I can't even like think straight. So, and I knew concussion protocol. The thing is, it's like fantasy football.
It helped you.
That I had of a concussion. I was like, well, number one, I slept through my alarm that next morning, and that was atypical for me. Then I still had a headache from the next day, and then I was at a loss I was emotional the whole day. I'm usually very in the middle. Like, I am excited from here to there, like, but I won't range very far. And I was very emotional that day. I just noticed those things, and then I just couldn't pick up words. And so with all those symptoms, I was like, I need to go see someone. And the PA said, "Yup, these are symptoms consistent with a concussion. You're not going to go back until the following Monday." So,
but you're cleared. You've cleared concussion protocol, and you're feeling good, or what?
Well, look at us, Louie. We're back at it. We are.
How many days are you headache free? I need to know.
I am not headache free.
No, it's still bothering you. That's insane, man.
So I'm still recovering from it, but I'm good enough to give it a good faith effort. I'm here for y'all. Louie is here for all of us, his hip hop dancing class, and Bradley's concussion. Despite all of the adversity, we are here to bring you strong content moving forward. Make sure you guys are checking out Louie on the Twitter, right, at @FF_Louie Gee. And Louie, you also have a podcast. I know I joined it. It was Analytics Are for the Nerds, a dynasty football podcast co-hosted with comedian Allie Brady. Allie's hilarious, by the way. How did you guys even get started with that?
So my start is in comedy, right? So
Yeah.
I did stand up for years, because of different life factors, I'm not on the stage as much as I'd like to be anymore. But that's where I started. My old co-host Kyle Turner was a comedian too. He became a firefighter, so we had to do a little switch. And Allie was the perfect person for me. Her and I riff so well. Like we just really just have that thing where we get along so good. We laugh at each other's stupid jokes. She's funny. She's knowledgeable. She knows her stuff. And not horrible on the eyes. Allie's a very pretty girl. It always helps a podcast, when people are listening and not watching at all. You want a real pretty girl voice. But no, and Ryan Mura too. I got to give him some credit here. He doesn't ever get listed. He's not on the emblem, and he doesn't get mentioned as an official co-host. But Ryan Mura
silent threat.
He is a silent threat. He really is the glue of what holds us together, because me and Allie could just, we do a comedy podcast. I love to try to say it's fantasy football. If you're looking for some really deep dive fantasy stuff, you guys here at Player Profile have a lot. You give great content. Our boys Mike and Adam, I love a lot. And so like these guys, that's where you go. If you guys want to come on, and I've had great guests. So like even when you've come on, or I've had Pat Corain on, they've come on, and we'll nerd it out for like 30 minutes and talk a little bit of fantasy football, but we don't like to get too crazy. We like to be fun, have a good time. The last 30 minutes, I always usually bring on like a comedian or two we do fun drafts. And like I said, I want to go back to just giving Ryan some credit. He's really been the glue, because Allie and I could just literally go 60 minutes of jokes without saying one thing in fantasy, and he makes sure we talk a little fantasy football. So got to give him some props too.
Yeah, shout out to Ryan. It was a lot of fun joining you on the podcast. But speaking of which, we've got to get to some content. We are 12 minutes in, Louie. But before we do, I need our listeners and viewers to take a look at our injury finder at Player Profiler. It is a very valuable tool. Let's hear from Matt Kelly about our injury finder.
Now, as we at Player Profiler have become a full-blown machine learning company, the crowning achievement has to be the injury finder. We're now taking BMI data and injury history data and assigning a probability that a player is injured on any given touch. And not only can you see a player's fragility rating, their injury risk, we also have analysis from professional physical therapists breaking down all the major players that underwent surgery last year and what their rehabilitation looks like heading into 2023. There's a tool to compare players. There's a database where you can say, show me all the foot injuries, show me all the severe injuries, show me all the injuries requiring surgery. It provides you the key market intelligence to know what is the difference in probability that player X versus player Y will miss games this year. It's great for fantasy football, and it also just satisfies your curiosity as a fan. Go to the App Store, go to Google Play, download it. It's $5 every year just to reload the latest injury predictions and fragility ratings. The 2023 data is live now. Open your phone and get smarter.
That's right. Open your phone and get smarter.
I'm laughing so much as imagining what my profile would look like. It would just be red everywhere. He can get hurt anywhere now. Anywhere at any moment. That's so great.
Injury finder. Oh, you're looking at me. You found me. I am an injury.
I'm looking in a mirror. Okay, yeah. Injury finder. Found him.
That's really funny. So, guys, Louie Gee is our guest tonight, and he is currently 5th among all 667,000 entrants in the Bestball Mania 4 tournament from Underdog Fantasy. Louie, we got to get in some content. So let's take a look at your team. I'm going to do a little bit of shifting around of our stage here. But I'm really excited to take a look at your team. Obviously, you're top 5 for a reason. We're going to see some real strong plays. But let's take a look here at what it looks like. So, Louie, you scroll all the way up so we can see how you started this draft.
Sorry. Yeah, let me
you are okay. We're taking a look at Louie's draft board to start. And obviously hitting on some very late picks. I mean, let's start at the bottom. Fine. You mentioned the late picks.
Yeah, the late hits. I mean, that's where you win, right? Like, so I mean, this is really good to kind of take a look at the Puka, Kyron at the end. Sam Howell's been a really good third quarterback, but the Puka Kyron obviously is what got me to where I'm at, right? I will scroll up and so you can Achane there in the 11th, Mostert in the 10th. I did a lot of that, Bradley. I don't know if we talked about that when you were on the podcast, but like all these like ambiguous backfields, I spent the whole kind of off season just wrapped them together. This is a different conversation for a different day, but like running backs are, I think it's changing. These running back injuries are going to change the way we play. Not even just like the injuries this year, but the position becoming less important to teams. I want everybody, like I don't want to just pick the right the right handcuffs anymore. Like I just want to get a backfield that I know is going to be good and just give me all the pieces if I need them. I mean, look at how much I Mostert, and then Achane blows up, so now Mostert loses value, but then Achane gets hurt, and now so and there is, when those two are both healthy, they're both scoring points. So I think that worked out obviously the most. But if you look up top, like, has Kelsey really been Kelsey? No, but in a bad tight end year, it's been fine. And Olave's been down. DJ Moore had the one big week, and that was what we were literally, and you and I think, recording on my podcast the day that DJ Moore went off, and
for his 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, and that's what pushed me into first. I think I was sitting in like 14th going into that week. This is a big thing that people have talked about and kind of I don't want to say crapped on my draft or the strategy, but the double bully tight end here with Kelsey and Andrews, I really just kind of felt like I never do that. But Andrews in the 4th round there was too good of value, and I didn't really love anybody behind him.
I mean, look at some of the players going around that. The Drake London, Dameon Pierce, Jonathan Taylor, those have failed. And I think that was, Mark Andrews going into week 6, not including the week 6 data, had a 5.84 best ball value rating. It's my own little formula for weighting the value of how much those players contribute or would be contributing to a winning best ball lineup. And 5.84 would put him at tight end 3, only behind Laporta and Kelsey. But, it drops from Andrews at tight end 3 at almost 6, to Dalton Schultz at 7th overall is half of that. So that you mentioned the discrepancy is just so major between what Mark Andrews is going to give you on a weekly basis compared to, I mean, Schultz was going tight end 11, 12, 13, 14, somewhere in that range. And even though Schultz has outperformed his ADP, it's not been close enough to give you what Andrews has given you. And Kelsey's at 8.6. Like Kelsey is double what the tight end 4 is on the year with this Hunter Henry. So Kelsey and Andrews have given you significant pushes, in that particular position. And while it's probably making you unique enough because people are scared away from it, it's not something that I'm looking to do, but it does make you unique.
This is a September. It was the day before we left for Vegas, so September 4th, I believe. And so this is late in the season, and I didn't do a lot of this. Like, obviously that I said this isn't my type of strategy. But at that point, that last week, you're just trying to get things out that are unique and a little bit different from what you're drafting. If you look down this list, like I don't have tons of correlation. Olave, Evans, Rachaad White, and then I believe there was some Baltimore, Miami, Mark Andrews, and then
that was one of my favorites to target.
And so it wasn't like I was crazy about correlation in this, and that was just being different. Now, me and Mike Chope were talking about this last week on my podcast, is that this roster, I think, can hang around. I really do. I've lost Richardson now for the year, but I think Howell, I could get the weeks from Howell and Pickett to stick around because I'm strong everywhere else. Olave, hoping to get a little spike in Olave, and then I'm pretty healthy everywhere else besides Kyron Williams right now. Achane looks like he's definitely going to be back for the push, and Mostert, like I said, keeps that value up. I think that this team can stick around the high leaderboard for the regular season prizes, but because of the lack of correlation, I wouldn't like its chances so much when it gets into the playoff rounds. But we'll see. I mean, I'm just trying to, hang on, because I'm trying really hard. I'm out there. I'm doing hip hop dance classes to make sure that I'm staying in shape on Sundays, to make sure my guys are doing their best. But it has some legs for sure. And look at Montgomery now is hurt. That's going to be another one that's going to.
And Rachaad White's coming off a bad game too. Are you concerned about Rachaad White moving forward? What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, he has not been efficient at all, right? But they're just won't give anybody else a shot. And I really, has it not been kind of weird to just like all the, and I get it, that preseason love, but all the preseason hype was on Sean Tucker, and they're putting in Keyshawn Vaughn, over him, and that's just scary. I think if they end up, sticking with it and staying competitive, you might see Lenny back there. I don't know. I mean, it's somebody they're gonna add, because they keep on giving Rachaad all this work, and he's just not, he's not producing. But in non-best ball, I'm not giving up on him yet, because until they show me that they're going to use somebody else, he's getting the work share,
Yeah, I just came off of a different podcast, and I said that Rachaad White is the silent killer of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in real life.
Seriously, I don't understand what's going on there, and
like Baker Mayfield is playing really well. He's
good.
Getting the ball to Mike Evans. Like, had the ball not been tipped at the line, that Mike Evans gets an 80-yard touchdown, and you're in first place.
And I'm in first place.
Well, I don't know if that's necessarily true. It probably would have been a lot closer, because you are, I think,
12
22.
Points.
Is it 12?
Is it?
I think it's 22.
All right.
It's 22
well,
points behind number one.
I have a GED, Brad. Math's not my top skill.
Well, at least now you've moved ahead of Walrus Balls, right?
RIP Walrus Balls. Push them towards the back. I just couldn't live with myself. If anybody else wins, I do want a obscene name to win. Me, my friends, an obscene name. But Walrus Balls is just, it's not an image I want to go into my off season with. So let's push him back as much. Literally, when Underdog promoted my number one team last week, like 30 of the replies were "Long live Walrus Balls." Like, fuck F you guys. I don't know. Am I allowed to swear on your podcast? I swear on mine too much. I won't swear on yours. Sorry. But like, what is going on? So yeah, that the Walrus Balls had the love. I'm trying to do the podcast tour. So a few people root for me too. I have feelings, Brad.
I'm so glad that you have feelings, because if the season were to end today, you'd have $100,000, just from the regular season, plus whatever you would win in the extra 25, or what, I don't know, the extra 25 you get back for making the playoffs. But it's been exciting. Really looking forward to seeing what happens with this team. I mean, Puka Nacua, obviously an enormous hit at the end of the draft. How are you expecting Puka Nacua to go the rest of the season? He's a player that I was touting since March. What drove you to draft Puka Nacua, And what are your thoughts on him moving forward?
I was just huge on his profile and listening to guys like you, to be honest, I don't do that work. I don't do tape work. I don't tell you, I listen to guys like you and other guys that I trust in that sense, and then look for opportunity. Right. And Cup was a 30-some-year-old wide receiver coming off of a second injury, and there was some stuff there. Stafford had a horrible year last year. Like, even if they were, I almost thought that they'd be worse than they were, and even helping his opportunity more. They're good and producing both of their. I mean, Stafford looks great. I did not expect this at all from Stafford, so that was not had to do anything with my Puka love, and now that's just added to it. And I think the everybody said such a small sample, but I think it was such a extreme sample. Like, so it's such an extreme, like, you've never seen anything like that. I don't think that that's going anywhere. I get worried with like veteran players like Stafford after that drop last week, the drop in the end zone, and I get like, I think I'm in my own head about it, but I'm just like, is he going to start losing confidence in him? But Cup's health is always a question. Stafford doesn't look like he's going to slow down, and I think that Tutu Atwell looks like he's going to probably be the odd one out there, and Puka's going to keep getting the targets. So I think he can continue to carry this team as far as doing what he needs to do for my team here.
Yeah, I'm excited about Puka, moving forward. I do. People were very much in he's Travis Fulgham 2.0. Get out of here. You guys don't even understand what Puka Nacua was doing in college. He was crushing. His PFF receiving grade was really good. And my philosophy behind drafting some Puka was, we know that Cooper Kupp's dealing with some injuries, because we had information about that. We knew that, when you drafted, you knew that Puka Nacua was probably going to get rotated in at some point because Cooper Kupp was not there. But the reason behind drafting Puka was, we knew what Ben Skoranek was. He's garbage. We know what Van Jefferson is. He's garbage. And we've seen hyper targeting in the past from we saw the Tyler Higbeast from a couple years ago, where Higbee was like putting up these monstrous games because there was no one else to throw the ball to.
Yep.
And so at least take a shot on some guys. And I think that's a move moving forward. Like, if a guy played okay in college, even if it was a smaller school. I mean, BYU is not small school, but it's definitely not the type of competition of, your SEC, your LSU, your Alabama, your Ohio State, etc. But BYU is not some, Louisiana Lafayette, right? And so if there's a player who produces, and there's a history of hyper targeting in an ambiguous wide receiver room, there's pathway for relevance to take some shots on those types of guys.
100%. I will say this, like, Puka was about that last 3 weeks. I'm just trying to look up to see if I can get the numbers still, but he was probably 50% that last 3 weeks, where I was just taking him in the 19th or 20th. Like, just, that was my flyer, and I don't, I know a lot of people like to diversify. I do my diversification in the first like 5 rounds. Like, I want as many different draft spots and like stars as I can, and even guys I don't love, I'll get a few shares. At the end, like, I don't need to diversify there. Like, I want to take my shots, and I have a bunch of him and Kyron and guys, and I would rather take a bunch. It doesn't kill you if you're missed, right? And if you hit, you're sitting here. I mean, not to like take not the opportunity to brag, but I have like 4 teams in the top 10,000, and I think that's not to downplay the being in 5th, but like, I think that's just as impressive as being in 5th right now. Like, I have 4 pretty live teams that I like, and all the other 3, like, I like probably more than this when it comes to the playoff round. So
You actually have 6. You have 6 in the
Oh,
top 10,000. Oh, look at you. Be modest and humble.
I just being my, you spend one day around some old women dancing to hip hop, and you just become.
It's just, oh, it's okay.
It's okay, honey.
Look, Louie, you're probably, on a scale of 1 to 10 to these women, you're probably like a 12. Okay.
Oh
You're
my
probably
God.
like the catch.
Listen, I was the suburban DILF tonight. There is no doubt about it. But it's not like I had competition. I was the only guy.
Supply and demand. This is clear.
Supply and demand. That's it, Bradley. I like the way you're thinking, brother.
Lots of frivolity, lots of fun with Louie. Make sure you guys are following him on Twitter at @FF_Louie Gee. Louie, as I mentioned at the top of the podcast, top 5 among all scorers so far. He at one point after that Justin Fields massive game, was number 1, but at top 5, cannot scoff at it. We are not going to be the thieves of joy here. I told Louie that at the beginning. We are not going to steal away that thunder. It's going to be a lot of fun. Louie, do you max these tournaments? That's something that some of the people are asking.
Yeah, so I normally max the BBM, and I try to max the smaller ones. This year, my timing was a little bit tough. So I wasn't able to do like as much of the puppies and the smaller ones. I didn't spend as much time maxing those out. I have like 30 to 50 in most of the smaller ones. I really wanted to max this out this year. I didn't even get there. I don't know what my exact number was, but I missed out on maxing. You know what? You know why I missed out on maxing? You. I'm going to blame you a little bit. Yeah, here, you probably don't even know why I'm going to blame you. We were in Canton, and you brought up drafters and how the overlay was going to hit there, and I go, well, I got to start drafting the drafters. And I honestly, I'm literally just saying this right now. I don't know if I've opened the app in the last 5 weeks. So I might be sitting 5th overall in drafters right now. We don't even know. And actually, don't go look. Just let me believe for the rest of this podcast, I might be a top 5 team there too.
This is great. This is great. Shout out to Canton, Ohio, hosting the FF Expo. Shout out to Louie. Shout out to the Buffalo crew, frankly. The Deep End guys, they have their podcast partners here on Player Profiler. Make sure you guys are checking out the Deep End as well. Mike Shope and Adam Krautwurst, both great in the industry. Mike is the voice of Buffalo for those who are not familiar. And so make sure you guys are checking out the Deep End. It's great. They're great guys too. So the Buffalo crew stays together, Louie. How about that?
Yeah, we the first year we went, I remember us getting like stuck. We were having dinner. It's this big. If anybody of your listeners haven't gone to Canton, you just have to go if you're into fantasy football at all. It is one of the just most fun. Everybody's
the Mecca. The Hall of Fame is there. Bob Lung does a great job hosting. There's something for everybody.
There's just no stupidity. There might be people that you don't hit off with or whatever but there's no like a-holes or anything like that. Just everybody's super cool. I mean, I'm the most annoying person there is, and no one punched me one time in like 3 years, so it's shocking. But no, so anyways, we were there like the first time we all went together. We're sitting there eating dinner late on like Friday or Saturday night, and we're at this big thing where you're supposed to network and meet people. And it's me, the Go Bills guys, Shope, Adam Krautwurst, and we're looking around and go, we could have done this in Buffalo. Why are we here? Let's go talk to somebody. My God. So we learned our lesson the last couple of years, and we've spread. I think you joined us for dinner this year or lunch, maybe whatever. We spread our wings a little bit, but yeah, us Buffalo boys like to stick together. You never know when someone's going to try to beat one of us up.
This is true.
You need a whole crew.
A whole crew. Lots of fun. Well, speaking of Buffalo, this allows us to transition. the concussion, a
Oh, no.
transition. Anytime I stutter now, I'll just blame the
That's
concussion.
it.
There we go. We're going to transition into talking about some of the Buffalo Bills and how they've done as well so far this year. So we'll kick it off with Stephon Diggs. He was being drafted as the wide receiver 5 overall. And, there were a couple questions this past offseason about, is Diggs starting to in the decline? We saw in the second half of the season of last year that Diggs was not performing in the same way, but some people came back and said, no, it's because Josh Allen was actually injured, and that's the reason Diggs was not doing well. But we had a lot of questions about who is the real Stephon Diggs. Is he still elite wide receiver, or is he a risky play at the end of the first round? And Diggs he's played well through the first 5 weeks. I have the first 5 weeks worth of data pulled up. Diggs is wide receiver 4 among all wide receivers in best ball value rating. So how are you approaching Stephon Diggs, and what do you expect of Diggs the rest of the season?
Stephon Diggs is like one of the best route runners in the league. I mean, Stephon Diggs is that guy, man. I cannot, and this isn't me being a Bills fan here. It's just I hate the hate that Stephon Diggs gets. He gets this hate that he's like this bad guy and a diva. He is just competitive, man. And I think he handles it himself really well. To when he is, that there's a lot of rumors of what happened this offseason. I know, some truths to that, though, not to be putting business up, but I know that it wasn't as bad as everybody made it out on him. And I'm glad he just came and balled out. The one thing that is going to always go his way, well, one, there's just not a secondary option in this offense.
Right.
And I know you're going to be talking more about that, but like as soon as Josh gets flustered, that find open space guy, I mean, he will throw it across the field, across his body into triple coverage to Stephon Diggs rather than throwing a 2-yard flat to, his fullback in front of him. So they have a connection.
Allen is willing to be reckless with Diggs.
And they have a connection that just you can't replicate anywhere else. And, we're seeing that with him and Gabe Davis are like best friends off the field. But we can't. I made the same joke when you were on my podcast. But Gabe Davis tries to catch the ball like a seal, and you can't. No matter how good of friends you are, you can't teach a guy to learn how to catch. So we're going to continue to feed Diggs, and not for nothing. Really, I mean, he's gone against some of the top wide receiver quarterbacks here early on the season, Sauce Gardner, and these top name corners, and he's still eating. And this is his best start to his career, which is amazing. With all the kind of crap that happened in the offseason towards the end of the year last year.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about like the Dalton Kincaid pick and how that was affected. But the reality is Kincaid hasn't hit in the way that people have hoped for so far, and at least for fantasy and maybe even real life. We'll get your take when we talk about Kincaid here in a second. But Josh Allen leads all quarterbacks in best ball value rating so far on the season. He's ahead of Jackson. He's ahead of Hurts. So he's paid off his ADP so far based on the spike weeks that he's provided you. Really pleased about Josh Allen. He was going 27th overall in the third round. So you could have, started with Diggs in the middle of the first round and then gotten a solid round 2 play, and then Josh Allen in round 3.
Yeah. And, there was a lot of that. It's just, how popular is that going to be, and,
right.
And so I fight that battle every year, and I try to avoid this year in the bigger, like, main events and stuff like that. I try to avoid the big stacks. It was just like kind of just a leverage move. In the best balls, you kind of have to sprinkle in some, right?
You got to have some exposure to it.
You have to. And because when you look at a winning team, like, you know, they the rest of the recipe is always different, but you still need that core thing. So yeah, I mean, as a Bills fan, I try to I think I separate myself really well. I wrote for the team before, you know, I kind of covered the team in a different way. So I don't call myself a real fan anymore. I think I could read them the way that a normal person should, and not as a fanatic. But
Oh, so true or false? Louie Gee has jumped a table.
Plenty. Not in a long time.
Okay,
Not in a long time.
over under 4.5 tables.
Oh my God! Like maybe on one Sunday. Maybe I'm not even joking. I mean, I had days.
And you could
when I was
hip
in my
hop
younger-
dance after that?
Listen, there's been there's gonna be a hip surgery soon. You kidding me? No, that was in my younger years where we may have partaked in a few pregame drinks. But yeah, if you haven't noticed, I'm an attention seeker, Bradley. And yeah, you want to throw some fire on it? Sure, I'll go through it. Just have an exterminator, fire extinguisher close by, and I'm ready to go. Yeah,
Fire
no,
exterminator. Quote of the day.
and please bring an exterminator too. I don't like bugs either. I don't want to burn, and I don't like bugs. But yeah, it's been about 10 years, I think, since I've my last table, and I will tell you this: even with a Super Bowl victory, I think I have gone through my last table.
All right. Speaking of tables, James Cook had set the table at the beginning of the year for setting up possibly an RB1 season, but he's tailed off a little bit as of late. He was going as the running back 23, 73rd overall. It's been hard for James Cook to find the end zone. He's not being used a lot around the goal line. He's had a couple down games lately. Is this just a fluke, or is James Cook just going to have those up and down games based on how the game flow goes? How are we approaching James Cook?
They'll never use him in the goal line. And, you know, that was something that you really had to factor in early on when drafting him. And, you know, I knew he was going to get value where he was drafted because he is an explosive player. He's a good pass catcher. And I knew that he was going to over exceed his ADP. So I have a lot of him, but he's never going to be that league winner, right? Because he's just not going to get that. McDermott's never going to give anybody really. I mean, McDermott could have Jonathan Taylor come, and he would probably still like limit his workload. McDermott's just never been that guy, and in this backfield, you know, Damian Harris just went out with an injury last week. You and him both had a rough week with concussions.
We did.
But you know, he's doing better now, but he's probably done for a while. They had the perfect mix in the backfield with Cook and Latavius Murray and Harris, where they all had like 3 different skill sets, and McDermott was kind of playing that. I wouldn't be surprised. There was that report that came out the other day that Fournette was going to visit, and then it got shifted. You know, it got canceled or whatever, or said it wasn't true. I wouldn't be surprised, and this is just me kind of knowing some local media guys and speculating on what they're speculating, but if they were afraid of Ty Johnson's on their practice squad, and I think they want to escalate him. And I'm sorry, I was just thinking if I had the right word. Did I have a concussion this week? I'm saying a lot of dumb words too, but that's just normal. But I think that they're going to escalate him this week, and I think they were afraid of that. So I think they're going to want to see what Ty Johnson has in like the passing game, and they'll use him a little bit there. So that even hurts Cook a little bit more. And I don't know what the dude's drinking, but Latavius Murray is a friggin' beast, man. He is running the ball so well. He's like 60 years old. He should be in this hip hop dance class with these old ladies, but he's running the ball like a maniac. So I expect him to do to continue to get a bigger role as we go along. So yeah, I'm a little worried about Cook the rest of the way, and I would be careful starting him a lot of weeks.
So Latavius Murray is a player that I went on Man versus Machine here on Player Profiler with Dario and Theo Greminger. Shout out to Theo. Shout out to Dario. But there were questions about James Cook or Damian Harris, and I went with James Cook, but I also said we need to temper expectations because Latavius Murray is going to be a thing, and I was laughed out of that. I was laughed out of that podcast. Theo like cut me off. Latavius Murray love, and I said he's going to be the gadfly to the other players in the backfield, and Latavius Murray through the first 6 weeks, fantasy points per opportunity, 12th among running backs. 12th fantasy points per opportunity. And they're running, enough running plays for each of these guys. Latavius Murray has 6 touches in 4 of 6 games. He's going to get some usage. And with Damian Harris out, as you mentioned, Latavius Murray is an eyebrow raising desperation bye-week fill-in at the flex over the next couple games, especially this week in week number 6. If we're talking like redraft leagues, the Stack Hunters is usually a best ball podcast, but for those who are looking for a desperation flex, Latavius Murray has a pulse, and against a New England team where the Bills are expected to win by 9, who's Sean McDermott going to give the ball to in a blowout? It's Latavius Murray.
If I had to say something outlandish, give you an outlandish take about the Buffalo Bills, I would say that outside of Stephon Diggs, Latavius Murray is going to have the most touchdowns on the team from here on out for the rest of the year. Like they don't want Josh running the ball. They keep telling him, he's an idiot and he keeps doing it, but they really don't want him, especially up in close and around the goal line. They don't want him to take those hits. He's their big investment. They are going to start using Murray. Harris was a threat there a little bit. Now it's just Murray. I wouldn't be shocked if we don't see something like a Jamal Williams situation from last year or a Miles Sanders situation where he's just the one to punch in a lot of 1-yard touchdowns. I'm not saying he's going to have a high ceiling, but I wouldn't be shocked if he got a decent amount of touchdowns here the rest of the way.
Yeah. So per Adam Levitan, shout out to Levitan, Josh Allen, this was through the first 5 games, had just 8 designed runs, 1.6 per game. Last year, Josh Allen had 67 in 16 games, 4.2 per game. He is down. They've cut it more than in half. They are not, as you mentioned, Louie, they do not want him taking hits. They need him for the longevity of the season. If they have Super Bowl aspirations, which the Bills are equipped to handle, they've got some pieces on the defense that are really good. Losing Tre'Davious White obviously is not a good thing for them, but they've got really strong. And losing Matt Milano for a long time, but the reality is the Bills are designed to compete for the Super Bowl this year, and they can't afford to have happen what happened last year, and that is Josh Allen being affected significantly by injury. So this makes sense. Latavius Murray makes sense, and he's doing all of this good work. He's 25th among running backs in yards per touch and 28th in true yards per carry. Like he is late career Frank Gore.
Yeah, 100%. I made a joke, and we'll probably talk about this today on my podcast. I'm gonna go right from here to mine tonight. And one of my talking points today is like, how far are we away from Frank Gore? Like, I mean, these guys that came out of the woodwork today, Darrell Henderson and Royce Freeman might be a thing.
James Robinson signed with the Packers, right?
Like, what is going on? That like I'm like Frank Gore, call him up, see if he got if he has a few more reps in him. I'm ready.
If he can get 3.8 yards per carry, let's go.
That's fine. That's a McDermott dream. If McDermott can get 3.8 yards to carry, in his head he's like, all right, just run it 4 times in a row and first down. McDermott's trying to make this offense very conservative. Luckily, he's got the best quarterback in the league to keep him from doing that.
We'll talk about just a couple other Bills players, and then we will wrap up the podcast. Gabe Davis, you mentioned that he struggles in real life and is not a consistent wide receiver. We've seen that in the best ball streets as well. But when he hits big. And he is, through the first 5 weeks, Gabe Davis, 57% of his weeks were at least a flex worthy. And he was wide receiver 9 in best ball value rating. So what is he offering? In 41% of his weeks, he was at least top 18. And so that's the type of thing that, like, we're drafting him at wide receiver 35, 36, 33. Sometimes we got him at 30, whatever. But the difference between Gabe Davis and, your George Pickens is that you see the highest of high spike weeks, and even with the floors, like when Gabe Davis hits, he'll hit bigger. And so that was the concern with George Pickens is, do we trust Kenny Pickett and the offense for Pittsburgh? The answer was no, even though Pickens was going ahead of Gabe Davis in most drafts. And it's clear that Gabe Davis, the better play so far.
Yeah. So the thing with Davis, and I want to give a lot of credit to that relationship that I talked about earlier with him and Ellen, like they really are best friends outside the field. And I think that does mean something, right? Like Josh wants them to do well, succeed. He's in a contract year. Like there's all that stuff. But like I said, he's had a lot of trouble separating himself on routes. He is horrible at catching the ball on any kind of comebacks or anything like that. Like he is a long ball threat, which, you want that high ceiling. To me, I avoided him a lot in my Allen stacks, only because almost everybody was doing it, right? Like it was kind of hard to get. It was hard sometimes to get Josh in Diggs unless you kind of went a little bit away from ADP or got lucky, like we talked about earlier. So everybody was making sure they had Davis along with Allen, and I'd rather be unique. I didn't see the upside with him. I know that maybe one guy that you're going to mention here, and if not, I will just quickly, but like where I see the rest of the season being, and I drafted a lot of these guys, I think you're going to see Deontay Hardy really be a good spike guy here. And he scored his first touchdown in the red, and they used him. Like I just said, they don't want Josh running in the red zone. They used him in a little swing pass here the other night in the red zone. I think they're going to find creative ways to get him the ball within the red zone. And man, they have not taken. Remember when he was with the Saints? Like he was known for the deep shot. They have not thrown any of those yet. So those are sitting in their back pocket. I really expect him to be a really fun spike player here the next 10 weeks. He's only going to hit 2 or 3 weeks, but those 2 or 3 weeks, he's going to hit monster numbers, I bet.
I'm here for all of that because Deontay Hardy was a player that I wanted so much of in the best ball, but I felt it was almost too chalk. Like I was like, maybe he's just too much of a guy, but I liked him. He was 3rd among all wide receivers back in 2021 on the Saints in target rate. His yards per route run, 2nd, 3.31. Like this was a player. Imagine in 2021, you had Diggs, you had Gabe Davis, and you had Deontay Hardy. In 2021, we're all top 12 yards per route run type of guys. And so Hardy was my deep pick to be, the wide receiver 3. It kind of got smushed a little bit when Dalton Kincaid got drafted, but Kincaid, He was being drafted as the tight end 11, absolutely busting for us for fantasy. But I mean, as a Bills fan, are you encouraged, number one, by what you've seen from Dalton Kincaid so far? And two, do you expect to see more spike weeks in the second half? Or are we going to see the same splitting of Dawson Knox the rest of the season?
I want to keep, so there's a lot here with Kincaid. So let me kind of let me control my ADHD here a little bit. But so the biggest thing with the Knox, I'll start there, is that it's not a true split. Kincaid is not playing tight end. Okay, I mean they call it 12 personnel when they're out there together, but he is in the slot most of the time. He's not playing a true tight end, so he's not really anything that I was drafting Knox at the same production from the last couple of years I expected, because I wasn't worried about his position. Now, what's worrisome about Kincaid is, one, you say he's hurting his fantasy, and he is where he was getting drafted, but the guy's on pace as of, he was out injured last week. So before last week, he was on pace for like the 4th best tight end year of all time. So for a rookie. So like, high standards here. And I know rookie tight ends don't do, great, but the guy is he turns his hips like Kelsey, like the little catch and goes he's so good at. What I'm really disappointed in is that they really haven't taken any deep shots with him but that's what scared me about this from the get-go, is that's never really been Josh's thing. Josh has never really thrown those seam passes across the middle. I wanted them to use him a little bit like the Lions are using Laporta. Like, just get the dude's a uber athlete, sure hands. I really don't understand so much. The only thing that I'm hoping for is that I feel like they've been a little vanilla, especially against lower talented teams. And I think there's a little bit of purpose in that. I do think that they're trying to save a little bit more for the end of the year in the playoffs, because towards last year, obviously things went downhill towards the end of the year. So I'm just hoping they kind of break free a little bit. I'm not Ken Dorsey's biggest fan, but they did, like, they are the top scoring team in the league or something. I mean, they did dominate the 3 games that they dominated, and the 2 teams, the 2 games where they struggled against the Giants and the Jets, they just kind of played down the competition safe, but the game plan was there. So I'm excited to see which weapons they open. If I'm betting on them, I'm betting Hardy first. I'm just starting to get scared about Kincaid right now. Not for his future or anything like that, but I think right now they're not sure how they want to use him.
Yeah, as you mentioned, not being used close down the field, average target distance 3.3 yards, 33rd among tight ends, 4.3% air yard shares, 33rd among tight ends as well. So there's not been a lot of usage that, as you mentioned, is encouraging for Dalton Kincaid moving forward. Unfortunately, feels like a dud pick at tight end 11, 117th overall. There were really high hopes. He is like Laporte is what we hoped Kincaid would be, right?
100%.
So unfortunately, look, our chops move on. Like, at least one of those rookie tight ends was hitting, like, who would have thought Laporta would be, the player that he was right out of the gate. But nevertheless, we will put a wrap on the Buffalo Bills talk, Louie. It's been a lot of fun chatting about them. I like your insights. It's great to put your vision of what you're seeing and also the stats that I'm thrown into. So bring those together for our people. Who is one player in the second half of the season that you think is going to boom?
I want to cheat a little bit here and just pick the Houston offense. Like, I don't want to pick a specific spot, but like, Stroud is good, right? And
Yes.
they're a bad team. So he is going to continue to throw the ball a lot. He's going to continue to grow as a passer. He's going to spread the ball around. I mean, they got 4 guys right now that have all had big games. The guess on Nico or Tank Dell has been a little bit back and forth, but the guy I was pumping the most, and you've mentioned him already, I think Dalton Schultz. If I'm going to have to pick one guy, and then I know tight end's not sexy, but I really do see that Schultz is going to have a really a good second half of the year. He's starting to get a comfort level with Stroud. Stroud looks to him as soon as he needs to dump off and get a simple throw. They're starting to get a little bit of chemistry, and I like what he can do compared to. I have a team that has Tank Dell and Nico Collins, trying not to put them both in the same lineup most weeks, and I'm not picking the right one. But I just think that offense is going to continue to excel here second half of the year.
For me, it's Christian Watson. You see all the Green Bay Packers paraphernalia in the background. Maria Quintero, shout out to you, go Packers. But if you guys haven't checked out my Week 7 fantasy football winning stats article on Player Profiler, just dropped this morning, and I mentioned how Christian Watson leads all wide receivers with 11.4 yards after catch per reception among wide receivers with at least 10 targets. And it's not particularly close. It's like 11.4, and the next closest is like 7. He is 16th among wide receivers in yards per route run. He's the number 1 receiver in dominator rating. He's also number 2 in yards per reception and number 3 in win rate versus man coverage and 15th in air yard share. The issue is, of course, Jordan Love. We know that Jordan Love is hashtag not good at football. And so Jordan Love has like a 55% completion percentage. That is worse than Zach Wilson, is worse than any other quarterback in the NFL. And he's not completing passes to Christian Watson. In fact, Christian Watson, this is a crazy stat, Louie. Let me share this with you because it'll blow your mind. Christian Watson has played 2 games. Okay. He's played only 2 games. Christian Watson leads all wide receivers in the NFL in interceptions on targeted passes.
What?
He's only played 2 games.
No way. That's insane. That's insane. I mean, he had a rough go at it last week, but that's a really insane stat.
He got horse collar tackled, like 5 yards out, which would have been like excellent for all my best ball teams. But I'm wish casting, for Christian Watson, a player who missed a lot of the beginning of the season with the hamstring injury. But Louie, who's one player that you think is going to bust in the second half of the season?
I'll make it simple, and I don't really think this is really going out on a limb or anything, but Ramondre Stevenson's going to continue to struggle, in my opinion. The team stinks. The running game's not going to be prevalent for whatever reason. They're using a bunch of Zeke. There might be a mix-up there. I mean, there's these rumors that I don't see Belichick stepping down or getting fired mid-season, but maybe a change in the offensive coordinator or something, or who's calling the plays might happen here. And that just doesn't, I just don't think that he's got a good outlook here for the rest of the year. So I'm going to continue to say that he'll struggle.
So if Zeke or if Stevenson struggles, does that mean Zeke becomes a flex play week to week moving forward?
I've been playing him a little bit as a flex play in certain spots, man. I mean, I'm very, very high on Zeke coming into the year. I bought a lot of him, Fournette, and who's maybe Hunt.
Yes.
3 of these guys I bought a lot of them.
27% of Fournette, which is terrible.
Please
go to Buffalo.
He'll be here for the playoff run. Don't worry about it. Not Buffalo, but he's
Lombardi
gonna be somewhere.
plenty.
Yeah, no, he'll be somewhere for it. But yeah, I was taking those guys everywhere just late because you knew they were going to find jobs. Kind of funny that Fournette's the last one, but I do think he'll end up somewhere and helping those best ball teams if they're not dead already.
Well, if I'll tell my bust in a second, but I want your reaction to Julio Jones signing with Philly. Speaking of old, crusty players getting signed to contenders.
I mean, I'll probably find out in a couple minutes, but I put some modest bids in for him elsewhere around. I mean, there's too many of these stories with these guys that come out and like they get that re-energized. They're like, all right, I don't have to start till Halloween. Cool. I could try really hard for 8 weeks. Their offense hasn't been looking great.
Devonta Smith did not practice today.
Didn't practice today. Like there might be some opportunity for him, but I don't know. Let's see if he gets through a couple games without getting hurt.
Ooh, fair. The last time we did see Julio Jones, he went 7 for 74 and a touchdown. So,
you seem like you're trying to throw some juju out there.
He had a 20 something % air yard share. He did not play super well for Tampa, but he still has some spike weeks in him. So the one player that I think is going to bust in the second half, and then we'll round this out, is Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is already getting outsnapped most games by Tazi Spears. Spears looks like the more dynamic back. He's been involved in the passing game. Derrick Henry's still going to be okay, but this is to my own chagrin because I have the number one. This is not your winning team, Louie. I'm only winning the pros versus Joe's FFPC tournament. I'm only the number one team there, but I only have 5 running backs in that team, and one of them is J.K. Dobbins, and one of them is Devon Achane. And so I'm only rotating through 3 running backs to start moving forward. But Derrick Henry is one of those running backs. Jahmyr Gibbs and Kenneth Walker are the others. So I've got 5 running backs. But to my own chagrin, I think Derrick Henry either gets traded, he gets moved on from, he gets faded out of the offense. I mean, Tannehill is dealing with the same ankle injury that he dealt with last year, and we saw the offense look miserable with Malik Willis. So Derrick Henry, they may just want to see what the offense looks like with Tazi Spears being the lead back. And if that's the case, Tazi Spears, top 12 running back, if he gets the full workload.
Easily. Tazi's one of my favorites. And I know we got to wrap up, and I got my co-host texting me to see where the hell I am for my podcast. But I get one thing on Henry, which is just hilarious, is that like that run where he broke away the other day, and they timed it at like over 20 miles per hour his speed, and I'm like, what are they using kilometers? Is that a Canadian? Is that a Canadian gun? There is no way that dude was moving 20 miles per hour. He was like slugging, and he looked slow. He looked like he shouldn't belong in the league. And 20, okay, whatever. Maybe I'm just jealous.
Oh, well, speaking of jealous, I am jealous that you are now in the top 5 of all Bestball Mania 4 season-long contestants. Louie, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, laughing with you, joking with you. Make sure you guys are checking out Louie and his podcast. You can follow him on Twitter at @FF_Louie Gee. Louie, any other drops before we send him off for tonight?
No, if you haven't had enough fun yet, come join me over on my podcast because I'll be recording in about 3 minutes. So,
all right, y'all. Make sure you guys are checking out tomorrow. I'm hosting the Thursday night tailgate, 7:30 to 8 p.m. before Thursday night football. And make sure you guys are checking out the tailgate on Monday. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's we bring our beers, we talk start sits. It's going to be a lot of fun. So guys, check out that tomorrow, 7:30 on the Player Profiler channel. Louie, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for joining me. And until next time, good luck in the best ball streets, everyone.
Have a good one, man.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.